Welcome to Schmactors, a podcast series that seeks to answer the question, are Hollywood actors all spoiled, vapid, vacuous, and vain ingrates, or do some of them actually have interesting views on issues of the day? Or is it a mixed bag? James Marsters and Mark Devine are putting themselves to the test. They're leaving it up to you to decide if they're interesting or just plain nuts. Listen as they peel back their craniums, share the surprising thoughts that fill their heads, and draw back the curtain on the world's zaniest town. Welcome back, James and Mark. Are you guys ready to do this again?
So good to be back, man.
Yes, Jason, thank you. It seems like maybe the adjectives that you use for actor, it feels like there's anger almost behind what you're saying. Because you usually maybe a couple of adjectives and you use like 5, vacuous, stupid, idiotic, or whatever.
Well, vacuous, vapid, and vain. I'm just going with the zeitgeist. Yeah. I didn't make these up.
Exactly.
You know.
And now we have to, he's setting it up, so now we disprove.
Oh, okay. Now we disprove
by
that.
showing our wisdom.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I just love what we're doing because I am in Jason's podcast headquarters, right?
Yeah.
And he's got all of the bells and all of the whistles.
Yeah.
And you guys out there, you can't see this, but I've got a really beautiful light on me.
Yeah.
That I appreciate.
I don't.
He gives me little candies to suck on in case my little tongue gets dry. And he gave me some coffee. You know, he's got everything. And and then Mark doesn't get that. Mark is in his house.
I'm in Georgia. I'm like upstairs looking into a forest. We're out in the country, man, and it's great. It's beautiful. Super quiet, but Jackson looks out there and he says, "What's out there, Daddy?" And I said, "Well, that's where the clowns live, and the clowns come out at night if you're not asleep." And he said, "Where are they?" I said, "Well, they come up through the ground. They can actually come up through our backyards. You'll start seeing like dirt moving, and slowly, a clown will come up." And yeah, clowns live there. Mr. Wrinkles that I knew in Catholic school, Mr. Wrinkles is a clown that has been pretty famous. I think there's a documentary that when you've been bad, Mr. Wrinkles will come and get you. Or Father Fingers.
Wow, that would have terrified me when I was a kid.
Does he tickle you? I'm Father Fingers.
Yeah, it would tickle Furt, you know.
Yeah. Why do adults do that? Tickle kids. I used to have nightmares when I was a kid of giants picking me up and tickling me until I cried and screamed in agony.
Yeah.
And I wondered for so long I wondered why I was having these nightmares. And I was like, no, that's my life. I'm just dreaming what's happening to me as a little kid. These big adults pick you up and torture you with tickling. Ugh. Horrible.
All right, guys. You ready to dive into today's questions?
Yes.
We got some barn burners here.
Okay.
Here we go.
We're ready.
All right. Susan from Des Moines, Iowa writes in and says, when doing a sexy time scene, how do you mentally prepare so you don't get a stiffy? Or is it expected and just part of the gig?
Great question.
That's a good question.
Great question.
Yeah.
Super great.
I remember an interview. Denzel Washington, no joke, would say to his partner, please don't be offended if I get an erection, and please don't be offended if I don't.
That's why he's right? Denzel. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. I will say for myself, when your only costume piece is a sock, like usually you get like a shirt and you get pants and you get underwear and you get shoes and maybe a nice looking jacket. And then there are these days where you go into your trailer and the only thing on the rack for you to wear that day is a sock, slippers, and a bathrobe so that you can, put that on in between takes.
Was it like a tennis sock?
Well, some actors actually want an orange sock so that Nick Cage uses an orange sock because he's like, I don't want this to be visible. So I'm going to wear an orange sock so that if anything shows,
you can't put it on the internet.
You can't use that. Yeah. They would give me a black sock. Because I think that they were just reusing the sock from yesterday. I didn't complain about it.
But not a tube sock, like a no-show sock?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a sock. You just take what you get, I guess. I'm no Nick Cage.
It's all right. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. And it's the nightmare for me where I'm sure other people have had it, where you go to work and you're naked and no one else is. And that's my day. That's for real. And it may not be exactly the nightmare because I do get a sock, but it's pretty freaking close. And in that circumstance, my brain is not going like, oh, this is such a sexy scene. Oh, this is so much fun. It's a nightmare. And so I am not I haven't had this problem, and I probably never will, of getting an erection during a scene. That's just not my experience.
Do you rehearse your sex scenes? Do you go through the choreography?
Yeah, it's like stunts. You gotta make sure. Yeah, definitely. This is my story. So I'm doing my professional debut on stage, and it's at the Goodman Theater, which is like the biggest theater in Chicago, one of the biggest theaters in the U.S., and it's a huge break for me. And it's The Tempest, and The Tempest is all about a wizard that gets stranded on an island with his daughter, and his daughter's growing up, and she gets to the age where she should be dating, so he shipwrecks the prince's ship, and they crash on the island so that she can get a boyfriend. So I'm playing the boyfriend, and I'm supposed to be the perfect man for this character called Miranda. So Bob Falls, who was this really incendiary director.
Yeah, I know Bob.
They gave him the Goodman Theater, which was a big step up for him. But he had a very old subscription base, and he wanted to get all of these old people out so that younger people could come enjoy the theater. And so he wanted to offend the audience whenever possible in this first season. He wanted to freak them out. And the way that he did it was inject nudity into every show. And so I was the nude boy. So my professional debut on stage was to be wheeled out as Da Vinci's Perfect Man sketch, the hoop and you're like spread eagle.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to grip this metal hoop, and the little sprite guys who are playing the little fairies, they wheel me out center stage, spread eagle naked. Okay. And Bob was telling me, look, don't worry, we're going to light this very, very elegantly. It's not going to be like, what your fear is. Don't worry. But the lighting designer broke his leg in a skiing accident in Denver before we went into the technical rehearsals, and his assistant lit it instead, and he lit it like a Vegas show. It was just all bright light.
Oh, no.
And so I'm rolling with it, and the sprites decide to start messing with me. And so once I'm strapped into the hoop, I can't get out of the hoop. I'm strapped in. So they just start showing me Playboy right in front of my face, right before they wheel me out.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they would do this a lot. And I would just be like closing my eyes and trying to turn away because you don't want to get aroused right before you get rolled out on the stage. So luckily, I was so freaked out about having to go out there at all that it was never a problem. But the first time we rehearsed this, before we had an audience, and it was the first time I was going to get naked, I was so nervous. Suddenly, there's like 45 people who work in the theater, from the administrative offices, from the box office, and there's all of these people in the wings staring at this scene. They want to see it. And I have no power. I can't say, I'm not doing this while I'm being stared at. I can't, and I'm just, oh my God, it was horrific. That probably scarred me. And that's why I don't have a problem to this day with sock scenes. I'm not going to get aroused ever.
Were you erect?
No, that is not a situation that leads me toward that mind state. I'm not going to have that problem at all. I'm horrified. Like, I like physical intimacy, like many people, but for me, it's private.
Yeah.
It's something that I do with one person at a time behind closed doors.
Have you ever had public sex?
Well, yes, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I'd give anything for that. Can I tell? All right, so my first job, Alley Theater in Houston, Texas. Very first job, 800-seat theater. So Orpheus, Tennessee Williams, I played the main guy, can't remember his main name, but, comes in and he's able to play guitar, which I can't play, as you know, and then offers himself to this woman. Mm-hmm. So everybody's there, and you're right there. It's theater in the round, essentially. But I had to stand up after playing, what's supposed to be a beautiful medley. And I'd always hit, and I'd hear people go, what was that? And I hit the wrong note again. But then the music stops. Now I'm wearing boots, jeans, t-shirt, and I'm supposed to remove all of my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for some reason, you're supposed to make that. So I'm kicking off boots. There's no way of doing that. I've practiced it. And people are kind of waiting. And I hear this woman going, what is it doing? And I'm trying to get them off. And I kick that off. And now I'm down to my underwear. And I've got to pull off the underwear. And I'm like, just the fear of God is in me. It being nude is so horrifying. This is in the early 90s before you could really manscape, I guess. So
I think it was illegal back in the 90s to manscape. I think that only got legislated to be legal.
Oh, so I look like the hairiest Irish kid ever.
Like a tribble.
For real. And that's exactly right. One reviewer said, Devine, a New York actor who brings his bushel of banyan with him.
That was a barn burner, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, let's go on to the next question. This is great.
That was a great question.
All right. Jebediah from Ozarks, Missouri asks, should we colonize Mars?
Definitely not.
No?
Definitely. Why in the heck would you want to do that? Okay. The best day on Mars is going to be way worse than the worst day on Earth. Mars has no breathable atmosphere, so you're going to be wearing a helmet all the time. And if you thought that wearing a mask in the pandemic was bad, check out wearing a helmet all the time.
Do we know that as a fact, though?
There is an atmosphere, but it's so thin that it won't keep you alive at all.
No, okay.
You have to wear a helmet right there. There are sandstorms the size of Australia blowing around all the time, so it's this constant sandstorm. Okay, we're getting technical now. There's no magnetosphere. So our magnetosphere is made by the fact that Earth has a molten core that is spinning, and it creates this protective shell around the Earth that repels cosmic and solar radiation. And without this, we'd all get cancer, like boom. But Mars is a smaller planet, and it has cooled. We think that it used to have a molten core. It used to have a magnetosphere. But as soon as it cooled and it stopped spinning, it lost its magnetosphere, which means it's bathed in radiation, and all of the water can evaporate off the planet.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry.
Yeah.
We'd all be super tan, though, right?
No, we'd just be blistered.
But if we wore protective lotion, like 35, 50 SPF.
1,000. Yeah, like SP 35,000 or something like that.
We could all have killer tans. Where you could say, like, they're from Mars, they look so healthy.
So wait. In this hypothetical situation, you've got your helmet and nothing else so that you can get your Martian tan?
Well, I'm not saying for anybody to take off their helmet. That's their choice, I don't want to get political.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're able to take your clothes off for a quick, sun ray. Let's get some sun kind of stuff.
That would be technically feasible, but you would have to have so much slathered in protective gel.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, have your wife, put a lot on your back, tons on your back.
I guess because that would, because there would be nothing else to do on Mars.
Yeah.
There would be nothing fun. It would be all about survival.
Yeah.
It would all be about how do we collect enough of our own bodily waste to use as fertilizer so that we could grow food, which if you've seen The Martian with Matt Damon, really cool.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He could only grow potatoes, and he grew potatoes with his own poop. And he ate poop potatoes for years before they rescued him.
I gotta watch that.
And this is your life, guys. This is your life on Mars. And because they haven't found a whole lot of water, you'd have to recycle your urine. So you're drinking your neighbor's urine, your fellow colonist's urine. You're sipping your water and you're wondering, whose urine was this made out of today? That's not super fun. Maximum we could probably survive on Mars would be 100 colonists because there's really no water Or they might have found water. They might have found a few thimbles full of water up the North Pole or whatever. And if we do find water, the best possible case scenario is a very small colony surviving, eating poop potatoes and drinking their own urine. And there's nothing to do. The best you could hope for is romance, I guess, you know? And you'd all be like, oh, we have to have babies because we're Martians and we have to have babies. But with only 100 people.
So you'd be tan and making love.
You'd be tan and making love. But here's the thing. You only have 100 colonists, so you're all going to be inbred. Within a few generations, you're all going to be inbred. So,
and has that been proven to be bad?
Yes, most definitely.
Where?
Well, if you look at the portraits of English royalty, they get pretty scary, you know? I just saw an article about this, and it was like the most inbred king ever, and he did not look good.
Yeah.
You know? He did not look like something that you'd want to date.
But we'd have better health insurance up there.
No. Oh. No, there'd be nothing. There would be potatoes, there would be dust, and very little else, actually. There's no health care.
I think you're misunderstanding the question. So we're essentially looking at a biodome up there. Nobody's going to want to go up there and eat poop potatoes, you know? And who knows, you know, maybe that's fine.
Well, you ain't going to have sushi. I'll tell you that.
Well, what about the fish?
There's no fish. There's no water. There's no fish.
No, transported from Earth.
No, you could not afford to supply your colony on Mars. It's too expensive. So the Martians are going to have to be self-sustaining.
What about we have a biodome? We let the quote unquote workers go first, right?
Mm-hmm.
We let them set it up, make it look just like Earth. You know, like the Grove Shopping Center. Create something that looks essentially like Santa Monica Boulevard.
It sounds good, but in order to do that, you would have to manufacture oxygen.
Right.
And oxygen, you can do that with water. So if you find enough water, you can make enough air. But since there's no water on Mars, you could make a little tiny bit of air. So you couldn't have a big biodome. You just have to have these little tiny sealed tents where your body odor would collect over the centuries. And you would just be in these grubby little tents, and that would be the only place you could take off your helmet. We would have to solve so many technical problems in order to get a viable colony on Mars. And if you think that we are capable of solving those kind of problems, here's a little tidbit about how ready we are to solve those problems. We can't even solve the problem of making it to Mars. We can't even figure out how to get human beings on that months-long journey, even to spend one day on Mars. We can't figure out how to do that.
They've got to make more fuel to get there faster.
No, the main thing is poop. I know I'm going back to poop, but it's inherent in Mars. You're going to be dealing with poop all the time if you're a Martian. So it's such a long journey that we could not pack enough stuff, enough food, enough water, enough toilet paper even to be able to use something and then throw it away and jettison it out of the capsule. We can't act like we do on Earth and just throw it away. We have to find a way to recycle everything that we're taking with us to Mars. So they found a way to recycle oxygen and provide air for the astronauts. They found a way to recycle water in most circumstances. They found a way to make food as they're journeying, but they cannot figure out how to get the water out of poop. And
come on,
I'm serious, man.
Squeeze
this is not a joke.
My son squeezes this out.
I know, but there are rafts of scientists at NASA trying to figure out how to do this for real. And they can't just distill it, which is basically boiling it and taking the moisture that is coming off of that process, which if you're in a little capsule trying to do that one, good luck. It also costs too much energy. So you don't have enough energy to boil poop in your spacecraft. And you can't filter it. They can't figure out how to essentially shove poop through a coffee filter and have that one work and remove the water. They cannot figure out how to recycle the water within feces.
feel like you're just wanting to say poop a bunch in a sentence.
Yeah, poop. It is kind of fun. Poop.
Because here's my argument. Mars it's rich in carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen, all in biologically readily accessible forms such as carbon dioxide gas, nitrogen gas, and water, ice, and permafrost. Have you ever had a permafrost?
Never.
When you're super high?
No.
Carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen are only present on the moon in parts per million quantities, much like gold and seawater. Also, there's a reduced gravity, and its position in the solar system may facilitate Mars-Earth trade amongst the Indians. Who wrote this? It may provide an economic rationale by sitting down with them to have corn and turkey and stuffing.
In order to extract all of this stuff that you're talking about, we would have to have, we're not talking about finding a lake in Mars. We're talking about finding like maybe permafrost, and you're going to have a large industrial complex to extract that water out of the dirt. And who's going to build that? How are you going to have your workers survive long enough to make a situation where you're getting enough water so that they can even survive?
Well, ask people in Minnesota.
It's like, okay, like I play these video games, and it's always about like some post-apocalyptic situation where, 30 years ago, all of civilization collapsed, and you're just running around trying to find bullets and old beef jerky and stuff. And inevitably, you walk into a new room or a new building, and you have to turn on the lights.
Yeah.
Forgetting there will be no lights. 30 years after the apocalypse, there won't be an ability to turn on the lights. It's just, we cannot conceive with our modern minds of how much we would lose if society collapses. So we think about going to Mars, and we think, well, we'll just build a big biodome, and they'll have a circus in there and everything. And we can do that, but that's not how it would be. It would be depressing. It would be horrible.
All right, here's a question. Let me ask you, say it is perfect. Say it is like Earth 2, right?
Okay.
Say it is perfect. Who would be the people first to go to Mars, do you think?
The stupid people. The people who don't think things through would be up there. Because like if you try to talk someone into, hey, you want to go to Mars? You would have to have that person being like, oh, that'd be great. Oh, I'll try that. Because if you think it through at all, you're like, I think you should ask someone else.
But again, that it is Earth 2. It has everything. It's just another Earth. It's this beautiful oasis.
Okay, well, if you could do that, I sure.
Because then I'm fascinated sociologically that you got people from all over the world up there, and then you got Animal Farm kind of happen, right? I mean, a government's got to be established somehow if people are moving up there, and then you're going to have, somebody, then we always go to violence. We always go to war at some point because they're not all agreeing.
And we divide just because we don't get what we want. And so we hate the people that don't give us what we want. And we rationalize that into why they're bad people, other than just that they're not giving us what we want.
Or what if Bernie Sanders was the president of Mars?
And he's like, everyone share your poop potatoes. Everyone don't cheat. Cool. That's utopia right there.
Again, all things being equal. But if we had everybody, if like the ideal, for liberals to say this would work like this would, and then they start doing that up at Mars, inevitably, what do you think would happen? Is it possible to have a utopia, essentially?
No. Utopia does not exist, and if you pursue one, you always get dystopia. You have to. That's what I love about this country, is that it assumes people are greedy and builds an economic model that takes that into account.
Yeah, and so, what kind of government do you think should be there? What kind of government, if you were to start a new civilization, what do you think it should be? So that, should we just follow Denmark?
Yeah, they're cool. I've been there. Good.
I feel like everything we do, we should be following Denmark, from their education, right?
Pretty much, yeah. They have businesses and they have an economy and they have capitalism, but they also they have the industries that should be socialized are like medical stuff, army, roads and bridges.
If I were your neighbor and I say, great news, I poop 4 times a day. I have an abundance of poop. Why don't you come on over and try it? And you'd be like, this is wonderful. But then I'll say, if you want some, it'll only cost you 1 Martian pin broke. And then suddenly, isn't capitalism born?
Realistically, and I'm not even kidding, one of the first laws on Mars would be that you would have to share all of your poop. Legally, you could not save it for yourself. That would be the death of the colony if anybody tries to hoard their feces.
And do you think eventually then we would be divided once again?
Yeah, over poop, over the resource of feces. Yeah. I mean, that's how dark this is. That's how dark. We would be fighting over feces. That's how dark the Martian colony would be. And I think, just to wrap this up, the only real reason that we would want to colonize Mars is this fear that there's another big asteroid headed our way and it's going to wipe us out like it did the dinosaurs. And I would rather the asteroid come directly and just split my skull than live on a dusty planet in a stale tent in a cave where the best I could hope for is romance with another grubby, depressed, inbred colonist. And that would be the best day I can have. I don't want that life. I'd rather die.
What if there were video games on Mars?
That would be great, actually.
Okay. See, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down for that. Well, this was a great episode. I think we solved everything about Mars. We can just ditch that now. Right?
If there are video games, I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, as long as there's video games.
Okay. Well, we did have another question from Greg from Naperville, which was, why do people go glamping? But I guess we kind of probably covered that in the last answer. Thanks for listening to Schmachters. Join James and Mark next time for more pointed pontification on the topics of the day. Do you have a burning question that you just can't wait to have the guys answer? Well, then head on over to schmachters.com and send it our way. If the answer won't get them canceled, we'll add it to the queue. And if you have a friend who you think would enjoy the show, use the share button in your podcast player and send it to them directly. Trust me, it'll make their day. Signing off for James and Mark, this is producer Jason. Until we meet again.